Hi and welcome to this Blueberry Markets video update with me, John Kibler, Head Currency Analyst. In this video we're going to go through the Forex market wrap. We're going to highlight some of the news this week and some key charts. So first of all, starting off with the news this week, there wasn't that much in terms of high impact, but what there was, or what the most important news of the week for us, was the CPI data out of the US. Now, it was forecast to come in a little bit shy of previous. Didn't really see that happening. I would have been shocked if it did come in lower because inflation is on the rise globally. So, you know, this is one of those key inflationary indicators, and we can see that it went to 0.6, so jumped ahead of estimates, and the core CPI month on month jumped from the previous as well. Now, underneath you can see from this chart from tradeandeconomics.com, this is the inflation rate in the US, and you can see pretty much what I've got here is a chart from 2000 to 2022, and we can see that inflation is now rising considerably. You know, the last time inflation was that high within this area here was the 2008 inflation spike before seeing that crash in 2008, and we're heading towards 8% now, which is quite considerably high considering where it has been over these past 22 years. So this sparked some fresh interest in a more aggressive Fed hike. Now, what happened was the dollar index last week dropped quite considerably. That was because it was downplayed by Fed members that they weren't going to hike as aggressive. Now, because this inflation data came out higher and we saw inflation move higher, what we had were these headlines here that were basically suggesting that maybe the Fed should consider hiking rates, and it's going to put more pressure on them to hike rates more aggressively. You can see here markets bet on faster rate rise as US inflation hits 7.5%. High inflation data pushing Fed closer to a supersized hike. So what they did was they talked about 50 basis points being the sort of thing that they downplayed. They said they're not going to hike rates as aggressively as 50 basis points. Because of this data, that seems to be now put back on the table, especially from media outlets at the moment. So is that going to push the Fed into doing a 50 basis points jump? If it does, it could fuel the US dollar in the short term. So let's take a look at the dollar index, how it performed this week. Very low ranging candlestick, to be expected after the previous 2 weeks of volatility. But you can see here that we had a very sharp rejection of $97. That was due to the downplaying of the 50 basis point hike. It's been put back on the table now, and we saw the reaction from the CPI data. Initially, it sold off quite aggressively, retested last week's low, came back up, and is now trading much higher on the week. So what's interesting here, price has broken through this high. This was the actually supply zone that we were looking to see if sellers would come back in. So we could still see price spike and then move to the downside. However, I think if price was to trade back above 96.20, we probably could see some further upside to the US dollar trading back towards 97. But it's all going to depend how traders digest that information and whether anyone next week kind of throws that 50 basis points jump off the table. Moving on to Aussie US dollar then. So we talked about Aussie potentially moving higher this week because of the double bottom pattern. We did point out a couple of areas to be aware of. One of those was this supply zone in here. Price, however, just consolidated through that, broke through it, retested key structure. We then dropped, but then we've retested some more demand zone, and price has started to push back higher. So we could still see price push towards this level. Could depend on how aggressive the dollar is going to be in the short term. Now this 50 basis points news has been put back on the table. Is price going to rally here? Probably not. We're probably going to see another move back to 0.7, but there's still, you know, an opportunity for it to jump higher. Obviously, there was some positive data out the RBA recently, which has fueled some buying there, and you know, that could continue in the short term before seeing another move to the downside. But we'll have to monitor and see how aggressive the dollar is going to be at the start of next week. Moving on to Kiwi then, still in a retracement mode on Kiwi. Another bullish week, looking for price to basically come and retest this area. I do like a little bit higher, around about 6,830s for a retest, but at the moment, price still pushing to the upside. Again, we're going to have to just sit and wait and see how the price takes the information next week on the inflationary data, because what we could see is the Fed, talk about they're going to be a little bit more aggressive to try and control inflation. Could spark interest in the US dollar again. Could see price take these lows out and move back lower, just because as well price is within a downward trend. I would like to see another week of bullishness, maybe even if it just spike up, consolidate, and then break to the downside. Offers a nice risk reward ratio then as well for some opportunities. Finally, then the S&P. We talked about the S&P pretty much remaining where it was. Ended up doing that. We did get a couple of buying and selling opportunities, or at least some rallies and some bearish moves and some sell-offs. Basically rallied before the CPI news. After the CPI news, price pushed lower. What it looks like on the weekly is that we're rejecting this previous resistance level. If that is going to continue and follow through into next week, price could push to the downside. Could cause markets to go into a risk-off environment, which then could cause the likes of Aussie US dollar and Kiwi dollar to move to the downside and dollar to strengthen. So this week's week ahead analysis is going to be an interesting one to look into. I'll speak to you in the next video, and I hope you enjoy your weekend. Thanks for joining me and watching the content this week. If you enjoyed the videos this week, leave this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to watch some more of our Forex trading content, and I'll speak to you in the next video.